So, in a bit of a continuation off the last video I did want to talk about what pop culture gets wrong about drinking. And the reason that I thought about this, this video won't be as long as the last one because there's not as much to cover here. But I remember the very first time I entered a rehab facility. I had been in AA, by the way, for almost 6 years when I went into rehab. I hadn't even gotten my DUIs yet and ended up in, but the very first time I went to a rehab center, I had a pretty severe alcohol problem. But I remember one thing about this particular treatment center, it was a little bit better than the state-run institutions. I've been in state-run treatment centers, and they're just about as bad as being in jail, and I've been in jail, so I can make the comparison. This one was a little bit nicer. I had really good insurance with the company I was working for at the time. They actually were understanding enough to let me go through the treatment center program, and then the day I got out and the day I reported back to work, I was fired. So, and of course they made up some other excuse as to why I was terminated, but it was pretty obvious what it was all about. But anyway, I got there. I'd never been in treatment before, and I was in a couple of group therapy sessions in addition to these so-called AA type. I won't go into all that, but we had like 2 or 3 group therapy sessions a day. And there was one particular therapist that liked to take people, and he would put a chair in the center of the room. He'd make you sit in the chair, and he'd say, "We're going to make this person break down and cry." I didn't like that. That was my very first day that I saw this. And there was a young girl, they put her in the chair, and she was barely a sophomore in high school. I mean, I really felt bad for her, but she was really popular in school, and she was really pretty. And she was there because her parents had found marijuana in her room, and she had got caught by the police smoking some pot, like at some party or something like that. And of course, everybody and their brother just came after her really, really fucking hard. I think it was like, okay, here's a popular pretty girl, the kind of girl that wouldn't have talked to me in school, so I'm going to just really let her have it. They literally had her just sobbing by the time they were done with her, and I was sitting there in the back at the time. I didn't participate, and I thought, this is fucking bullshit. This is supposed to help me want to get over my drugs and I didn't have a drug problem, but this is supposed to help people get over their drugs and alcohol. How? By giving people fucking traumas. But anyway, I ended up in that chair a few days later, and this was my crime. My crime was a couple of people asked me, "What are you in here for?" Because anytime I go into any place new, I always keep my head low. I try to kind of stay out of sight. I don't want to be noticed. That's in life and jobs or wherever I am. But somebody asked me what I was there for, and I said, I drink alcohol. I have an alcohol problem. And my God, the hate that came at me over this. They were like, "Well, you're just in here for alcohol. We've shared needles on the streets. We've robbed people to smoke crack. And you're in here, what, because you had too much at the bar the night before or anything?" So I ended up in the fucking chair, and I didn't break down and cry, much to the detriment of the fucking group leader, although they made my life miserable for about a week. I mean, absolutely fucking miserable. And this is supposed to help me want to quit drinking, by the way, just to note the irony in that. But everybody was coming at me. You just drank alcohol, okay? Their conception of being a severely, heavily addicted drinker, it was all from fucking TV, okay? They thought that, maybe you drink too many beers at the bar one day and you crash your car and you come to rehab. That's literally what they were seeing with me. And of course, when I got questioned about my own alcohol dependency at the time, a lot of them were kind of shocked when they were finding out the kind of way I was living at that time. I was talking about how I would wake up at 2 a.m. just completely in a fucking panic attack, shaking so bad I couldn't hold a cigarette, shaking so badly and with cold sweat pouring out of me and hallucinating, hearing voices that weren't there and having to reach for the bottle and get the booze down my throat just to get normal enough to think I can go back to sleep. I talked about waking up in the morning and just vomiting and the cold sweat, the shakes, the pain that would just rack my body from head to foot until I could get enough liquor in me to stop feeling like that. They thought I was lying. They thought I was exaggerating. They said, you probably got a DUI and the judge sent you here, which that hadn't happened to me yet. That happened a few years later when I got 3 DUIs. But nobody took what I was saying remotely seriously at all. Okay, they took, when I said I was having severe withdrawals, they took that to mean the same thing as having a hangover after a party. One guy said, well, I mean, in my life before, I felt bad, but I remember one time I had to drink 2 or 3 beers on the way home. Seriously. You're talking about 2 or 3 fucking beers. I'm talking about a half gallon of vodka a day just to function, and it's usually not enough vodka to get in my system to function. But they didn't want to hear it. They didn't believe I was telling the truth. They didn't believe anybody who didn't have a serious drug problem like heroin or crack cocaine or something like that, or who wasn't buying a lot of prescription things on the street. They didn't really feel I belonged there. I was made to feel kind of like a fucking outsider. The treatment center counselors made me feel like a fucking outsider, even though one of them, when he was going on and on about how an alcoholic doesn't have it that bad because everything's legal, there's no social stigma to being a drunk and all that. One day he was just coming after me really fucking hard about that, and I says to him, well, let me ask you a question. What were you addicted to? What were you addicted to out there on the streets? And he said, well, marijuana. Marijuana. You never woke up with a violent case of the shakes. You've never had your muscles spasm. You've never sat on a toilet at 4 a.m. with it coming out of your mouth with you vomiting in the other end at the same time while you're trying to gag down, while you got a bottle over here and you're trying to get it down so you can stop that from happening. You've never gone through any of that, but you're telling me that you got it fucking harder than me because you're a drug addict and I'm not. It really, 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 really left a bad taste in my mouth with treatment. Much later on, when I was put in drug corps, there were some similar reactions. The only difference was in drug corps, there were some other guys who were drinkers like me that could back up what I was saying. I remember one guy, I didn't even like him in drug corps during a group session, but he kind of looked and he said, look, what that guy's saying is fucking for real. When you're that fucking addicted to booze, you don't know how bad it could get. He was talking about... But literally the thing that most of the drug addicts had against me in treatment was it was legal. Okay, they didn't realize that when you're parked in front of a liquor store and you still got 15 minutes to wait for that damn thing to open up, and you're crying because you're in so much pain, and you're crying because you're in so much agony, and you're thinking, I may have to go outside around the back of the store and vomit some more, but I hope I don't have to get more diarrhea before they'll open that door and give me my fucking liquor. It's not like just having too much to drink at a party the night before. What I think pop culture gets wrong about alcohol, and I'm not talking, and I think it's because so many people in the regular world drink that don't have these problems, that don't have these serious dependencies, but in the movies, okay, well, I'll go back to Deadwood, what I talked about in the other video I just made, even though this one might not get uploaded on the same day, I might add, but the guy is drinking like a gallon of booze. One of the main guys, Al Swearingen, the tough kind of organized crime head, they're kind of like the Godfather of the Old West. You just see him all the time. He's just opening up a bottle of booze and he's just doing like that, like it's just water. And he's just walking around throughout the film. He's still a badass. He's still mentally sharp. He never has any shakes. He never has any withdrawals. He never has any problems like that. He never slurs his speech. He's always just as sharp as a knife. In situations where you would be completely out of your fucking head if you were drinking that much booze. And you see this happen in a lot of movies. You see a lot of movies, the main character just drinks alcohol, an insane amount of alcohol through the whole entire movie. And then like in the last 15 minutes, you just see him put the bottle down real bravely. And all of a sudden he's stone cold sober. He's got no withdrawals. He's got no shakes. He's got no hallucinations. He's not vomiting left and right. He's not on the floor with all of his muscles spasming or anything like that. He's just, I'm going to quit drinking now. I remember, even one of my favorite Tennessee Williams plays, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. The main character of Paul Newman, through the whole entire film, there's not one single scene in the movie that he hasn't got a glass in his hand. There's not one scene where he's not trying to get even more plastered than he was a few minutes before. And yet at the very end, just like that, he says, I don't want to drink anymore. Like it's just, you can just cast alcohol aside. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to have a little hangover, and then you'll be just fine after a couple of cups of coffee and a fucking aspirin, Doesn't happen in real life. If you're that fucking addicted to booze, as I was that addicted to booze, when you wake up in the morning after you haven't had any, you don't know, you're in a special type of hell that you cannot even begin to describe to other people. I'm not saying that drug addicts don't have it hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that if you're out there on the streets looking for needles and you've shared needles and you've done all of these kinds of things, I'm not saying you don't have it hard. I'm not saying that. I'm not even trying to hint that in this video. But I'm just saying, what I was going through, drinking a gallon of vodka a day, with trying to stave off hallucinations, the seizures that put me in emergency rooms, The one time that I just had a seizure walking down the street because I couldn't get enough booze, and I ended up waking up in the emergency room. The one time that I punched a paramedic and a whole bunch of paramedics and don't remember it because I was going through fucking DTs. What I did with booze, it's no fucking joke. But I think pop culture gets that completely wrong because so oftentimes in the movies you see these people that are just, drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking, and then you'll see them maybe the next morning, they'll be like, oh, I had too much fun last night, is there anybody that's got any coffee, I'm not going to drink fucking coffee after I've been on the kind of drunks I used to go to. For one thing, if you've been on a heavy, serious drunk like the type I used to go on a daily basis, you got severe heartburn when you wake up in the morning. You're throwing heartburn up. I remember I used to actually, around 2 a.m., I would feel this terrible heartburn right here, and I would go to the bathroom, and I'd deliberately make myself throw that up. It was like throwing up pure acid. And then I would say, I got to get some vodka in me so I can stop this sickness and stop this fucking pain inside of me. You're not going to wake up in the morning and just shrug it off like it's nothing. You're not going to drink booze heavily every day and just one day magically up and quit. You can, if you don't believe me, if you think I'm exaggerating, just do some Google searches on DTs from alcohol abuse. People die from alcohol abuse if they try to go cold turkey too fast. That's another thing I think that pop culture gets completely 100% wrong. The idea that the family member just comes into the guy's room while he's still passed out on the bed and he's still completely drunk, and they take all of his booze and they just pour it down the drain. They're like, I'm not living with you like this anymore. You're going to stop right now. And the guy just stops, after getting upset a little bit. You could kill a guy doing that to him. He could literally die. I remember one time when I was in jail, this wasn't my DUI connection. When I went to jail, I was picked up for public intoxication. I'd been drinking about a half gallon to a gallon of vodka a day for months. Okay, I remember I woke up that morning. That was the most terrifying feeling I've ever had. I hope I never go through anything like that again, but I was in violent shape. And I remember I was beating on the cell doors at one point, and the medical guy is coming down, and he's seeing all the people, And I said, look, I'm going to fucking die in this cell. You're going to have to give me something. You're going to have to give me something, to help me with this. I'm going to fucking die in here. You don't understand what's going on. He said, well, what's your drug problem? I said, I have an alcohol problem. He said, alcohol? And then he just kept walking. I almost died in that fucking cell if I hadn't been able to get out. When I got out, like over 27 hours later, my hands was literally like this. I could barely walk. I was literally in seizure territory. Luckily, when they let me out of jail at 3 a.m., I was able to get a ride from someone who was able to drop me off to my apartment where I knew I had about 2.5 gallons of vodka. It took almost an entire gallon just to get me back to normal again. I was still violently throwing up and shaking. It's not a fucking joke when you have a serious alcohol problem, okay? People die from trying to go cold turkey. People die from alcohol withdrawals. I'm not saying that other people don't have it hard with their addictions out there, but it was really fucking insulting to me at the time for you to tell me, well, you just got an alcohol problem. You don't know nothing. I mean, I'd like to put those people in a room and feed them a half gallon of vodka a day for about 7 months and then take it away from them one morning and say, you just got an alcohol problem. I'm not saying I'm disrespecting drug addicts. I'm not saying things like that. But in the movies, since we're going to talk about pop culture, in the movies, the drug addicts are always shown in these severely horrible kinds of shapes where, the ugly side of drug addiction is shown a lot more in movies. Name me a movie where a character's not a heroin addict or a crack smoker or something like that they don't end up in real, horrible fucking shape. I mean, you want to go back to The Sopranos again, you saw what the heroin addicts look like in The Sopranos. They're completely unraveled, completely falling apart, completely violent withdrawals, break all kinds of laws and everything like that. But you show me a TV show that has a serious drinker in it, a serious drinker is treated like somebody that wakes up in the morning that's got a hangover they can shake off and they got to go to treatment because they had too many at the bar the night before. It's not really, to me, a very fair thing. I'm not saying that every fucking movie needs to change the way it messages things. I'm not saying that everything needs to be done about me. I'm not saying that the whole fucking world needs to say to me, oh yeah, you had it really hard. You had it really hard. You had it as hard as the drug addicts, and we're sorry we treated you like that. I'm not expecting anything like that at all, but I'm saying that pop culture 100% treats drinking completely different from the reality of people who are really hooked on drinking. If you're hooked on drinking and you're out there and you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. They made a few movies back in the 40s, like I even made a video about one, The Lost Weekend, and a couple of others like that. But even in that, the person who has the severe drinking problem, he's shown as a businessman with a suit and tie, and something like that. It's almost considered like it's like alcohol abuse is something only privileged people have a problem with, or something like that. There was one, I forgot the name of the movie. I didn't watch it all because it was bringing back too many horrible memories. It was a Nicolas Cage movie. I remember in the very beginning of the movie, he's plastered drunk. And the next day he's trying to cash a check to get the money to drink, and he's like standing there at the bank and he's holding his hands like that, and he's like, sweat's pouring all out of him. And he's like, I just got out of the hospital for brain surgery. And believe it or not, I turned that movie off when I saw it a few years ago. I said, you know something, this is bringing back too many fucking horrible memories. But yeah, overall, I think pop culture kind of treats drinking problems as a little bit lesser than the severity of, say, severe heroin addiction. Not saying severe heroin addiction is not bad. I've known some severe heroin addicts. I was in treatment with some severe heroin addicts. I was in treatment with a severe heroin addict that almost lost their arm, kind of like in that really, really, really depressing movie, Requiem for a Dream. I watched that because I was a Jennifer Connelly fan, but I only watched that movie one fucking time. I said, I'll never see nothing like this again. But anyway, that's 16 minutes of me kind of outlining why I think that the pop culture diminishes what drinking problems are like. They don't really show you just how bad a drinking problem is. I don't see too many movies where the drinking guy is hallucinating and he's vomiting all over himself and he's unable to function, and then he gets a few drinks in him and he's like, I can function just a little bit, just enough, just a little longer kind of thing. They don't ever show in a movie a guy tapering off, which is what I had to do with my alcohol addiction. I couldn't go cold turkey. I would have died if I'd have gone cold turkey. I've had DTs. I'm one of the few people that's had DTs. One last thing, and then I'll shut up, just like AA, right? So many people in AA lie about the fucking DTs that I think that contributes to this problem. I used to see so many people in AA say, yeah, I woke up one morning, I had the alcohol DTs. I saw a bat fly through the room, and then I called my sponsor. Bullshit, that's a fucking lie. I've had DTs. I've had DTs before, and I can tell you this. You don't even know what planet you're on when you're having DTs. You don't even know your own fucking name when you're having DTs. Okay, DTs is not something like so many people in AA say, I had DTs, and they don't even know what DTs is. Anyway, I had to rant a little bit about that. Brought up some old resentments there according to the AA thing. I had to air that out a little bit. I don't think that... Anyway, I said it all. I'll see you guys next time. I got another video already in mind.